Welcome back, friends. Today I wanted to bring you some news from an upcoming MMORPG light called Drakantos. So, a little bit about this MMORPG. Drakantos is developed by Winjian Game Studios, which I believe is a Brazilian studio, and it describes itself as a free-to-play MMORPG that brings a unique pixel art style to a cooperative online experience. The game has fast-paced action combat, and the world is brought to life by compelling voice-acted cutscenes and a seamless blend of gameplay and storytelling. So this game has over 21 different characters, and you can play the game very differently depending on which type of style of character you prefer. And they do say that they have more characters to come as well. Now, each character has their own combat mechanics, their own personal traits, and each one has their own story role and storyline as well. And now this helps the characters stand out and break away from the traditional class system of other MMORPGs. And each new update will bring a new hero who you can play as well. And so an interesting mechanic of the dungeons in this game is that they are dynamic, which means basically that the missions and the dungeons and type of enemies you encounter will change each time you play. And this goes as well for the bosses and resources and other items as well. This type of gameplay makes each playthrough unique and challenging. For those of you who like PvP, Drakantos also will have intense PvP against other players in the game, and there are going to be different types of PvP modes for you to play, as well as a ranked system and regular in-game tournaments. Now, for those who like to personalize their characters and profile, you will be able to unlock different things like exclusive icons, titles, and skins to make your characters and your profiles unique to you and your own type of style. You can also collect pets, and each character will have their own unique type of emotes and voice lines, and it's very possible that these type of customizations may tie into their monetization model later on, but that remains to be seen. So with this type of game, I would call it more of an MMORPG light, because I don't know that you'll have as many players playing all at once in the same dungeon, but it does look like you will be able to play with at least 3 to 4 players at a time, and the game itself does look very simple and casual friendly. It looks like the type of game that could be easy to pick up and put down at any time, and at least for now, the game will be available on Steam and also on Steam Deck on launch. And this sort of confirms my thought process on this, because the Steam Deck is more or less a mobile device where you can carry around with you wherever you go and play with it on the go. So now, I'm sure there are quite a few questions about the game, and we do have a little bit of a breakdown here, a couple of FAQs that we're going to read through, and in the back I will be showing some of the trailers for each different character, as well as some gameplay from the devs in certain dungeons. That way you can get a better idea of how the game looks and how the characters function and work in the combat settings. All right, let's get started with the FAQ. So for the first question, it says, can I create my own character? Now, the dev said that in the beginning, their thought process was they had to go one of 2 different routes here. So the first route would be to let the player create and customize their own unique character. So sort of going through a character customization screen and building your own unique style one by one. Or they could create the character and then make that the only viable method of playing the game, which also isn't necessarily a bad thing. But the idea was that because each different path would provide its own challenges to create and to function, they finalized it with having each unique character instead of one person creating their own customized character. And the reason for that is because since it is a pixel art RPG, it does take a lot more work to get all these things to work together if you would create your own unique character. And so finally they decided to go with custom characters that they create in their own style. That way these things can flow a little bit smoother in the process. Not only that, but along with this, it means that they're able to build a lot more customization into the types of characters and classes that you can play. Not just that you're stuck with one archetype of a class, for example, like just a fighter or just a healer, but that you can customize more uniquely these type of characters that they have pre-built already into the game, so that you can more focus on the build rather than the character specific customizations and get stuck with just the one archetype. So another question says, each hero will have its own talent tree, so can we customize our build? So in this game, each hero will have their own abilities that you unlock as you level up and upgrade them in the way that you like. You won't have a specific type of talent tree. Instead, they have other systems in place that might make these skills and their unique abilities much better match in the game when you play with other people online. Why exactly did they make it this way? Well, their reasoning is that with talent trees, people tend to usually just go with the most popular or meta builds, and then because of that, there's a lot of power creep in the game and not a lot of originality for people playing together in multiplayer settings. Personally, I sort of agree with this, as we see a lot of guides online for other games and they technically just follow the same path, which is not necessarily wrong because you do want to get the best out of your build. However, in this case, they're trying to make an environment where this fosters creativity and uniqueness in playing with other people online. So I think this is a good way to move forward. Now, in order to build into this thought process, they created specific types of items. So in Drakantos, there are orbs, artifacts, and relics. And depending on what type of orb, artifact, and relic you equip, these will change what your ability does. Sometimes with these equipped, your skills will work somewhat differently, or maybe even extra to whatever they add, and sometimes they will completely change the ability to something completely new. And because of this is sort of their answer to endgame, essentially making this something to look forward to so that you can look for these type of specific orbs and artifacts that you can use to completely change up your playstyle from anybody else in the game. For artifacts, you can have 2 artifacts in each hero, and they're unlocked in your account and can be used in almost any hero. Essentially, they are account wide, so they're not restricted specifically to one type of hero. However, there are some restrictions in that some of these uses will depend on the faction element, or even some may be exclusive to certain heroes. But being that there will be so many different versions of them, it's very likely that you will have very many of them that will be able to be used account wide on any of your heroes. The same is true for trophies. As you see here, there are 2 relic slots, and they will grant your characters powerful passives, and some of them will change the gameplay style completely. So in essence, these gear slots and these gears, things like orbs, artifacts, and trophies will be what you're looking for later on if you want to completely mix up how you play your character and find a unique playstyle for yourself. Now, the big question, is Drakantos an MMORPG? And a lot of people have been somewhat confused, wondering if it was a fully fledged MMORPG or more along the lines of a co-op ARPG. And the response is that yes, it is an MMORPG, but it's definitely different from the conventional ones. They say they were very specific in trying to create something more unique than what many MMORPGs these days are or have become. And because of that, they are doing their best to combine a lot of aspects of open world and dungeon crawling as well. So a lot of the things that you can do in the open world, you of course can meet with other players in the server. You do have a lot of world exploration that you can do. You do have instances where you can fight enemies in the open world. You can find chests and other secrets. You can solve puzzles. You can collect different types of resources. You can search and collect pets. You can move forward with the story progression. You can find and complete side quests and many more. Not only that, but there will be a classic market where you can buy and sell items with other players, as well as many games and other activities. Now, as for the storyline and how each character will interact with that in their own unique way. So when you start the game, each character will have a different prologue and will tell a little bit more about their own story and their own personality and how they eventually become involved in the main plot. Now, even though each character's story may start off differently, eventually all players will arrive in the main town, which is Fairdale, essentially the starting village in the open world. And from here, you can embark on multiplayer quests and dungeons, things of that nature. Now, they have a very unique take on questing for an MMORPG, and they've decided that they don't want to go the linear route here. Typically in MMORPGs, the main quests or side quests are typically just mandatory for leveling up and just sort of gearing you towards the end game. But in Drakantos, they wanted to make the idea of quests have a real purpose and give you a very useful and very prominent type of reward, and not just only golden experience. So this will include unlocking systems, shops, artifacts, exploration tool, and so on. They do say there will be very many side quests and specific stories for certain characters, and these type of quests may be specific to each type of character. So for example, one quest might require knowledge of magic, so specifically only mage characters will be able to start and complete it. So in regards to leveling up and gaining experience, they say here that although killing enemies in the open world like a traditional MMORPG will gain you XP, they try to focus more on exploration and questing in the open world rather than just farming or leveling. So if you want to gain a lot of experience and level up, they have something called the Adventurers Guild. Now, the Adventurers Guild is the sort of dungeon crawler part of the game, and this is where you can group up with other adventurers, other players throughout the world, and take on difficult dungeons and enemies. And through this, you can be rewarded with a good amount of XP as well as loot and things like orbs, artifacts, and trophies, etc. Now, for these type of Adventure Guild missions, you do have specific objectives. So these can range from simple things like killing all the enemies in the mission or in the dungeon, collecting specific items, finding something unique, or even escort missions where you're trying to protect merchants. And this essentially means that even though you play on a familiar map, these objectives may change from time to time. And so that way the same missions don't get boring, but rather they have a unique sense to them as you play the game. In addition to these main objectives, there are also other secondary objectives and rare special events. And this can range from all sort of things like escorting a merchant at night and you're ambushed by monsters. A gold gnome appears and you need to defeat it before it escapes, which I assume would probably give you something special, maybe a lot of gold, who knows. And one of the most interesting ones I see here is the idea that an NPC can lead you and your team to end up fighting other players in their own missions as well. So that's quite a unique idea. And if you do manage to choose and complete these missions, you will get a specific bonus to the type of event at the end of the stage. Now, regarding ranks and difficulties for this type of dungeons, different missions will appear based on your rank in the guild. So in essence, this means that you can increase or decrease the difficulty setting for your preference, as some people may not enjoy these extreme challenges that may appear in the events. But if you're someone who really likes to challenge yourself and you think you're good enough to take on these challenges, you can absolutely go into the higher difficulty missions as you choose. Now, a little bit about multiplayer. So when you join a dungeon, you will be entered into a automatic matchmaking. Now it looks like the standard queue is for 3 players specifically. But even after the waiting period is over, if you join the dungeon on your own or with a secondary member, you do still have a few minutes afterwards for another member to join you in the team so that they can help you out while you're in the middle of battle as well. So that's a cool feature to have. And now, depending on how many players you have in the dungeon at the time, the enemy difficulties will scale based on that. And this includes if a player disconnects or quits the match altogether. So you don't have to worry about being overwhelmed if you started off with 3 players and you end up with just you on your own. Now, there is also the option to make a pre-made group. And in this sense, you do have a player cap of up to 4 players. So once again, if you're playing in the auto matchmaking, it's up to 3. And if you have a pre-made group, so let's say you and a couple of friends, you can play with up to 4 players at a time. And they said that essentially they tried to cap it at that amount because of the type of game that it is. So it is a top-down 2D perspective pixel RPG game. And because of that, they tested it where too many players on the screen at once would sort of make the gameplay too chaotic and will essentially hurt the gameplay if it was too many people at once. So they did limit this to just 1 to 4 players at a time in each mode. As for monetization, they haven't decided the final aspect of that, but they are currently considering a subscription model, which would be used to sustain the live services and updates. But as they said here, they are always open to discussing new ideas. And that doesn't specifically mention anything about monetization for outfits and customization for your character, unique emotes, things of that nature that they could potentially use for their monetization. But even if they did, that may not exactly cover all the costs. So what we may end up with here is a subscription model with some microtransactions as well for those type of character customizations. But again, nothing is finalized, so I don't want to speak on their behalf, but just throwing out my ideas there. And last but not least, the release date. When will the game be released? And of course, we're all probably eager to see what this game is and how it plays and want to jump in and just have a lot of fun with it. But currently there is no ETA on the release of this game. This game is still in active development, so it's going to be quite a while before we get any hint of it. Usually these type of games like MMORPGs would get an alpha or beta schedules, and then that way they can draw a little bit more interest and get a lot of feedback from the player base to see what type of things we have enjoyed and what type of things they should change. And after that, then we'll have something more concrete, something closer to a full release date. And now here at the end, they did mention this, that they are working very hard and hopefully planning to do a closed beta sometime in July. So again, looks like we may have a closed beta in July 2025 from the time that I pulled up these FAQs. So let's see if that closed beta date does come true. And if it does, I will absolutely be playing this game and bringing you some gameplay so you can see if you enjoy that for yourself. Also, if you haven't already, head over to Steam and add this game to your wishlist. That way you can be prepared for the upcoming closed beta once it releases, hopefully in July. And that's about it for news for Drakantos, but I am keeping a close eye on this because this is absolutely my style of game. I am a fan of pixel art RPGs, and this looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. And once again, hopefully this will be something easy to pick up and put down, because I'm sure a lot of us don't have too much time to dump into MMORPGs these days, maybe like we used to for those veteran MMORPG players. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this, and let me know what you think about this game and which type of character looks to be your favorite and which one will you play when the game releases. Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoy gaming content like gameplay, narratives, game reviews, gaming news, and commentary, consider liking this video and subscribe to The Hero's Blade. Until next time, wish you all the best, and God bless.